Be a seeker. Wherever you are in your spiritual journey, be a seeker. I think that you'll find that a rewarding journey. That is, so ask questions, dig into it. Don't be afraid to delve into the spiritual part of your life. Use this senior adulthood season of your life to explore more deeply. Dare to go there and be a seeker and ask, what do I really believe and why do I believe it?
Hello, and welcome to Not Born Yesterday, a podcast dedicated to older adults and the challenges and joys of aging. I'm Miriam Goodman. Not Born Yesterday examines the problems and solutions of growing older today. We bring you the wisdom and voices of experts in the field of aging and offer tips on how to feel your best, use your lifetime skills and experience, and make the coming months and years as fulfilling as possible.
I'm Lynn Winter-Gross. Not Born Yesterday is brought to you by Next Village SF, a local nonprofit providing older adults with support to help age in place.
Today on Not Born Yesterday, we want to examine something that's difficult to define but often comes up when we talk about aging. The subject is spirituality. And before you turn us off because you think we're going to suggest meditation or higher powers or anything that sounds too connected to religion, hold on. There's a growing body of evidence that indicates that spirituality is one of the key factors in aging well. It can contribute to greater optimism, longevity, and a more meaningful life. But what is spirituality and how do you get it?
To help us explore why spirituality is important and can play a role in the lives of older adults, our guest today is David Faust, a minister of almost 50 years, former university president, and he's the author of 17 books. Reverend Faust is passionate about the topics of aging, and he believes that the challenges of older adults have a spiritual component. His newest book is called Not Too Old, Turning Your Later Years into Greater Years. Dr. Faust, welcome to Not Born Yesterday.
Thank you. It's great to join you today.
Do you feel that aging adults need to adjust their attitudes about aging and that spiritual practice can help?
Absolutely. I wrote this book because I'm no expert on aging, but I'm living through this season of life. And I deal with a lot of people, my friends, neighbors, members of my church, who are, say, 50 years old and older, who come to me with a common set of questions. They're asking about the purpose of their life at a deeper level. They're thinking about retirement. They're talking about grandchildren. They're talking about what marriage means or singleness means later in life. They're dealing with grief issues. Some of them are dealing with caregiving for a loved one. So all of these, including the financial aspects of retirement and senior adulthood, all of these to me have a spiritual component to them. They are issues that I've thought about because of my role as a faith leader in my community, but also just on a personal level. I've asked questions, some of these questions, even when I was young. In fact, the first chapter of my book is called, You Need to Read This Book Even If You Are Young, because some of these issues, which have a spiritual component to them, are things that we really ought to be dealing with throughout our lives, but often they don't come to the forefront until we reach retirement, we reach a later point in our life, and then we begin to reflect more deeply on what we really believe, what really is important to us.
What about letting go of personal losses and forgiveness? Is there a spiritual approach to that, to letting go of blame or hurt?
Wow, that's a great question. I think that this is something that comes up as we get older because we all can look at our lives and look back and think of things we regret. We think of people we've had rough relationships with. I can think of leadership decisions that I made that I regret, or people that I hurt, people that I fired or let go, or there are different decisions you have to make as leaders. But one of the things that I've learned is that leaders have to be learners, and that applies to all of us as older people. We have to still be learners. And there are things that we can learn about letting go of hurt, dealing with shame, pain, baggage that we have from the past. And I think in our later years, this is one of those spiritual aspects. We need to come to grips with that and think, how am I going to deal with the things that I regret in my life? How am I going to come to terms with those things in my life? And I think our spiritual perspective on that is essential to really come to grips with those issues.
You've written about aging as a time of reflection. How do you deal with reflection? And what do the people you've counseled feel when they've been reflecting?
I know for me personally, I have had to learn. I tend to be a workaholic. And so I've had to learn to take time to think more deeply about things, to feel my feelings, to think my thoughts. And I kind of like that, actually, about older age. I'm 70 now, so I have 7 decades of time to look back on. My grandchild, one of my grandkids said to me one day, I was asking her, do you think that Nana and I, Nana, my wife, do you think we're old? And she thought for a moment, she said, medium old. But my point is this. I think if we are honest with ourselves as we age, there comes a point in life where reflection is a natural part of our lives, where we have more time to do it, where we naturally have more of a predilection to reflect on our lives than we did when we were totally busy. When I was working 90 hours a week in my career, I didn't have time. I didn't want to stop and think about the meaning of it all. As I get older, I have more time to reflect on that, and I actually intentionally take more time to think about that. And I think it's made me a healthier person, even though sometimes my reflections lead to painful thoughts. There's nothing scientific about this. This is just my opinion after working with a lot of people for a long time. But I believe that the 4 biggest fears that we have as we get older are mental decline, physical suffering, death, and then a category I just call losses. Losses come in many different forms. The loss of freedom to travel or to drive, the loss of identity and significance when you are immersed in your career, you're respected there. What does it mean when you've lost some of that identity? The loss of loved ones, the loss of control. Others may decide or have impact on where we live or what we eat or where we go and that kind of thing. So along with the typical things that we are concerned about as senior adults, financial security, the future of our world and nation and so on, there are all these other things, mental decline, physical suffering, death, and losses of various kinds that we have to deal with. And to me, that requires a level of spiritual reflection. And I would call it, in my book, I talk about what I call gutsy faith, not just kind of a lightweight faith, but a reflection on life that goes much deeper. There's a lot of humor in my book, because I believe that, well, there's a verse in the Bible, in the book of Proverbs, that says, a cheerful heart is good medicine. And it really is true if we can learn. Of course, we take seriously, very seriously, these fears and anxieties that we have. These are difficult, gut-wrenching issues that we deal with as we get older. But they aren't made better by being grumpy. They are made better by having a cheerful outlook. And again, I believe that the ability to laugh, a cheerful attitude toward life, is a spiritual thing.
That leads me to another question about something we talk about a lot, which is purpose, and older people finding purpose in their lives. We know the importance of exercise and eating well and sleeping well and having community, but it's sometimes harder for older people to find purpose. You've talked about that as well in your book.
Yes, and again, that's one of those things that I think is important at any season of life. We want to know that our lives matter. I think, unfortunately, in our culture, older people are sometimes put on a shelf, or at least we get that impression that our lives lack purpose because now that we're retired, who are we? What contribution are we making? These are things that matter to us because they do give us a sense of purpose, not just self-centered existence, but caring about the needs of others. That fulfills that sense of purpose that I believe that is in all of our hearts.
You know, I've read that less than 1/3 of boomers attend religious services. So it seems spiritual support needs to come from somewhere else. Perhaps we're all seeking comfort through spiritual practices, even if we don't call it that. So, how can even the most skeptical person include this kind of thinking to improve their lives?
I would say that regardless of a person's worldview or their view about religion, faith issues, it's important to ask yourself some questions about your core values of your life. I think three things that every person needs to examine about their core values, let's call them that, are they personal for me? Or is it just something that I have inherited from my parents, my grandparents? It's what they believed. It's what a religious leader or a college professor or someone else has said. So is it personal? Is this something that I really believe in my own heart and I embrace? These are values that are important to me. Second, are these values examined? Have you questioned them? Have you really scrutinized deeply what you believe? And I think this is something that we can do in senior adulthood. Questions and doubts are not incompatible with faith. They're actually part of building a stronger worldview and understanding what you really value in your life. So I think that your values, your spiritual perspective needs to be something personal, something that is examined and thought through. And then third, it's important that they be something that are shared. Your values are shared with other people so that you talk about what you're thinking, what you're discovering, what you're learning. You have some sense of community and mutual caring and support with other people. So you're right, Miriam, when you say that a large percentage of our population now do not actually go to religious services. But the issue isn't whether you're going to a public assembly of other believers, but what do you really believe in your heart? And are you connecting with other people about those things, or is it just a lonely journey for you? We all have an ache, a need in our heart for connection with other people and to explore these issues. Where did we come from? Why are we here? What gives my life purpose and meaning? What will happen when I die? And how will I get through the difficult and suffering parts of this life?
I think we all recognize that we're living through a difficult period, and some of us find meditation, prayer, and other practices help us actually lower our blood pressure and even improve pain management, makes us less anxious. Do you think it's necessary to have a personal belief system in order to get out of bed each morning?
There's medical scientific evidence that pausing, praying, meditating, relaxing, that really benefits you in so many ways, emotionally, physically, and of course, I would say spiritually. I wake up many mornings and I'm troubled about something, I'm worried about something. Those early morning walks refresh my body, mind, and soul. And I would recommend that practice to anyone.
I want to ask you about spiritual belief in times of loss, that many of us have hard time dealing with loss, and I'm sure you've dealt with a lot of people who are grieving. How does spirituality help people get through loss?
Lynn, that is a great question. Loss is such an issue as we get older. Again, it's something that affects us at any age, but when you hit, say, 60 years old or so, it becomes a regular part of your life. You have to think about that, and many people are not willing to really reflect on it. I would start by acknowledging that I've had a lot of loss in my own life. I stood by my dad's grave and did the graveside service for him. I stroked my mom's hair as she took her last breath. I grieved when one of my daughters had a miscarriage. One of my daughters is adopted from another country and is now a social worker, where she helps, her specialty is helping people who deal with some of the losses that are sometimes connected with adoption and adoptive families. So I've learned from her about the loss that comes from never being able to connect with your birth parents. One thing that I found very helpful that I will mention, if it's okay in this setting, is a person named Dr. Alan Wolfelt, the Center for Loss and Life Transition that he leads in Fort Collins, Colorado. I found to be a great resource. He talks about what he calls companioning in grief. What he means by that, and he can say it way more articulately than I would, but is walking alongside the grieving person, listening and learning from them, not trying to fix them, not trying to treat them as you would treat a patient medically to try to fix them. But as Dr. Wolfelt says, you invite the mourners to the dance and then you let them lead. So you come alongside as a companion and you listen and you learn. You ask gentle questions about the person they love who has gone on. And I found that incredibly helpful. To answer your question, I think there's a lot more that we could say about grief, but this is where, again, it would be hard for me to help advise somebody without addressing the spiritual component of this, because the loss of someone dear to you forces you to ask hard questions. What do I really believe about my values, my life, about life after death, about God? What questions do I have? What role does prayer have in this? Am I connected with friends and a faith community that can help me? All of this comes to the forefront when we're confronted with the death of someone we love. And I'll tell you, I have studied, I have read a lot, I have taken classes, but so much of it comes down to just being present with people in their time of hurt and loss. I see that in many people that I know who have just gently shown up during those hard times in my life, and I'm grateful for them.
Well, on a lighter note, we'd like to end our interviews on a positive note whenever possible. So can you give us some final thoughts on how spirituality can provide help as we continue our journey?
I have just a couple of thoughts on that. One is, I would say, be a seeker. Wherever you are in your spiritual journey, be a seeker. I think that you'll find that a rewarding journey. That is, so ask questions, dig into it. Don't be afraid to delve into the spiritual part of your life. Use this senior adulthood season of your life to explore more deeply. Dare to go there and be a seeker and ask, what do I really believe and why do I believe it? I have done that, and it's really helped me become a stronger believer, to be more convinced of the truth of what I believe, and hopefully to be able to present that in a gracious way. The other thing I would say is, and I say this with great cheerfulness and joy toward all my friends who are older adults or are entering that season of life, not only be a seeker, be an adventurer. Be an adventurer. Don't just think about what you can't do. Look at what you can do. I'm talking about adventures that might involve travel. For me, for example, because I'm interested in the Bible and biblical lands and history and so on, I visited Israel several times. I visited Egypt and Jordan and Italy and Greece and Turkey, the lands that are described in the Bible. I've branched out and found great adventure and great joy. Be adventurous with food. You don't have to eat the same thing all the time. Try something different. Be adventurous in your conversations, in the friendships that you make. In my book, I have a chapter on friendship. I really enjoyed writing this. And I talk about old friends, which are the easy ones because you've been around them a long time. They're the ones we gravitate to. Gold friends, which are just the few people in your life that even if you don't see them for a year, when you see them again, you just fall right back into conversation because they're just easy to talk to. Old friends, gold friends, but the trickiest one for older people, and maybe for all of us, is what I call bold friends. Branching out, reach out to somebody who has a different perspective on life than you do. Reach out to somebody from a different generation. Reach out to that neighbor down the street that you've never connected with. Make some bold friends. And I'll tell you, if you are a seeker and an adventurer, you will find that you'll find yourself growing spiritually, and it will help you as you get through your senior year as well.
Thank you so much for sharing your views with us. Our guest was Reverend David Faust, author of Not Too Old, Turning Your Later Years into Greater Years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Today on News You Can Use, we want to tell you about a new tool researchers are hoping will revolutionize healthcare. It's called a face age test, and it's already helping doctors make critical decisions. It may be hard to imagine, but what if a selfie could reveal something beyond how your new outfit or haircut looks, but actually report your biological age? Scans of face photos are estimating people's biological age, which is different from their chronological age, and predicting how long they'll live. For example, a fit 75-year-old whose biological age is 10 years younger than their chronological age may tolerate and respond to treatment better and live longer than a 60-year-old whose biological age is 10 years older than their physical age. The face age test is an artificial intelligence model trained on tens of thousands of photos from patients and public image databases to look for signs of aging in the face.
Recently, Boston cancer specialist Raymond Mack felt that his 90-year-old patient was healthy enough to handle aggressive cancer treatment. To confirm this, he used the AI face age tool. When he uploaded a photo of the patient, the test revealed that his health was more like someone in their late 60s, and the doctor concluded that his patient could withstand the procedure. Here's how it works. A live image of the person's face is converted into numbers. Then the AI model analyzes the bone structure and skin texture. Those numbers are then compared to a set of known ages to estimate a person's biological age. Despite its promise, face age technology has some downsides. They're ethical concern, as training data sets often rely on images of wealthy individuals or celebrities, leading to potential biases. Patients with what are considered to be older face scans might be treated differently, and they may face unconscious bias from doctors, potentially affecting their care.
As a result, the technology may struggle to provide accurate results for underrepresented racial groups. Factors like poor lighting, low image quality, and cosmetic procedures can also skew predictions. Face age isn't alone in this space. Consumer versions of such tools are already available online. For instance, Novus, a company focused on longevity, provides a free test that examines wrinkles, eye condition, and other facial features to estimate biological age. While challenges remain, the promise of face age lies in its ability to merge cutting-edge technology with personal and clinical applications. So don't be surprised if "Smile, you're on camera" is part of your next medical exam.
And that's our podcast for today. Our thanks go to our guest, Reverend David Faust. You can learn more about Next Village SF at their website, nextvillagesf.org. Our theme music is from Hook Sounds, and Jason Dahlstadt is our engineer. And we thank you for listening. We'd love to hear what you would like us to discover and discuss. Contact us at notbornyesterdaypodcast.org. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. All of these are free, and they help us to know our audience better. Be well, stay strong. Remember, you weren't born yesterday. I'm Lynn Winter Gross.
And I'm Miriam Goodman.